Hello everyone, thank you for joining us and welcome to another SysKit webinar. Today's webinar topic is User Activity Monitoring with SysKit. We're going to talk about how SysKit can help you track users on your servers, applications they run, and system resources they consume. But before that, we could do with a little introduction. My name is Silvio and I'm a Product Marketing Manager at Acceleratio. Here with me we have Frane, the SysKit product owner, who will be answering your questions at the end of the webinar. You can say hello to our guest, Frane.
Hello guys, how are you?
So, as you probably know, Acceleratio is a software development company based in Croatia, and we specialize in creating enterprise solutions for platforms like SQL, SharePoint, Windows servers, Citrix, and others alike. Now, we currently have over 2,500 clients from more than 70 countries. Many of them are really big name companies such as Coca-Cola, IBM, and most recently the European Space Agency. And those are the people that send stuff to space. So I would also like to mention that we currently have 4 products, and many of our customers are using more than one of them. So speaking of our products, here you can see all of them. We have SysKit, the server monitoring and administration tool, ASP.Docket, which is used for SharePoint documentation and management, CloudKit 365, the reporting tool for Office 365, and least but not the least, SQL.Docket, the auto-discover and documentation tool for SQL servers. If you would like to know more about any of our products, just check our company webpage or simply contact our sales team. They will provide you with all the information you need. Now let me guide you through today's webinar agenda. First of all, we'll go through a few housekeeping rules, and then I will explain how you can ask your questions using the GoToWebinar application. After that, we'll go through a few housekeeping rules, so you know what we're going to do exactly. After that, we have the short SysKit overview, and it will be followed by the short intro on today's topic. Next, we have a demo where we will present the possibilities SysKit offers when it comes to user monitoring. At the end, we have the Q&A session where Frane will be answering your questions. Let's start with the housekeeping rules. A recording of this webinar will be available online in a few days' time, and in about a week you can expect the webinar summary to be published, and it will contain all the questions you asked today and answers to them, of course. Also, all attendees will receive a 15% discount of new SysKit license purchases. All you need to do is contact our sales and they will set this offer out for you. So you are free to ask your questions during the entire webinar, not just on the end, and the most interesting ones will be answered publicly. So speaking of questions, in order to ask us a question using the GoToWebinar application, all you need to do is open the questions chat box and type them in there. All your questions will be answered by our product team, but you can find all the answers in our webinar summary later, as I said. So let me explain what SysKit is for those who are not really familiar with it. SysKit is a server monitoring and administration tool, and it helps system admins and consultants in their daily tasks. With SysKit, you can monitor user activity, application usage, server performance. You can track server inventory, generate documentation. Well, you can basically audit all events happening on your servers. Since recently, SysKit enables you even to manage your servers remotely, but to find out more about that, just visit our blog page. Another important fact to say about SysKit is that SysKit is an agentless tool, meaning you can monitor all your servers from one central console. SysKit users also have a web application available, and that application enables you to reach your monitoring data from anywhere. All you need to have is browser and some internet connection. To continue on SysKit, All of SysKit's reports can easily be exported to PDF or Excel format, so for better presentation values. And you can set up intelligent alerts to notify you whenever something unusual is detected on your servers. Now, one of the most important SysKit features is the server performance monitoring, and it enables you to track all existing performance counters, and I really mean all existing performance counters, and you can track them in real time and historically. I would also pinpoint the server inventory feature, which enables you to generate server documentation and track all system inventory changes. Now, let's get to our main topic, the user activity monitoring. So, monitoring user sessions on your system is a very important job. It provides you with information on who is doing what on your server and where is he doing it from which location. So with SysKit you can simply pinpoint the users connecting via RDS from various remote locations such as school or home, and that way you can simply validate remote access. You can sort connections by IP addresses, and you can use those IP addresses to detect the location from which a certain user is connected. Additionally, for each of your remote users, you can drill down in order to audit his session log or analyze his activity in more detail. And so talking about the real world, your remote users will often be the employees working from home, working from some other remote location, and this is when some other metrics become really important. What you should be interested in then is the time your users spend in different states, such as active state or idle state. With information about that states, you can check whether remote users are actively working on something, or are they simply being idle and doing, well, nothing. Those numbers can easily show you the actual work rate and actual working hours for each employee. Not to forget, there's one more great thing with SysKit, and that is that SysKit can help your HR department by calculating the payroll for all your employees. That payroll that SysKit calculates is based on the actual working hours been spent in active sessions, and that report is easily presentable to anyone in the company to understand. With SysKit, you can conclude more than just who are your users and how active they are on the service. You can go wider. For example, SysKit can detect the versions of clients from which all of your remote users are connecting. If there's someone connecting with let's say, older client version, there's a possibility that it doesn't meet the security standards you set up for your system, and therefore it represents you a threat. To connect on that, again, older environments like Windows Server 2008 or even ones before that, they tend to lose session performance when the higher color depth is present. The same goes for screen resolution of clients, which are also potentially which also can affect the remote session performance, and those are the things that SysKit allows you to keep an eye on. Now that we know about remote sessions and users, what about the applications those users are running on our computers? How are they using them? So for each user on your server, SysKit enables you to track all information about used applications, and that includes a particular time when when a user started some application, when user shut it down, and the user activity state while that application was running on. You can also find out what is the particular application that your user is using the most, and you can, not to go too wide, you can find out various other information related to usage of published applications on your servers. And finally, you probably want to know how much resources are these users and their applications using on your servers. Now, SysKit allows you to, for each user and for each process started by that user, to track the CPU, memory, hard disk reads and writes, and number of input-output operations. And all of that is done using the SysKit performance reports, which we will mention in our demo, but that is actually a topic for another webinar. So this was a quick overview of what I'm going to show you in today's demo. And now we can get started. Okay. So we're going to show you what useful information can you find regarding the remote sessions to your servers. We're going to guide you through the most important user monitoring reports and support them with some real-life use cases. So as you can see, we are currently in the SysKit's user report interface, and we have the SysKit session log summary report open. In many ways, this is the most conclusive report regarding the user activities on your system, and what it enables you is to visualize user activities over the course of, well, in this example, over the course of one day. But we can choose any time frame actually we want. We just go to the date range filter, and we can check out user session log summary in the last 70 days, 7 days, last 30 days, in the previous month, or simply choose the custom range for that. Now, let's say I'm interested in how hardworking was my users in the last week. So I select the last 7 days. And there's plenty of information here, but let's narrow it down by saying that I'm interested in how has my test user been working. So I go to organizational units and select only my test users. And this narrows down my information a bit more. Now, what you can see here is that if you use this filter, you can narrow the information so you can get whatever you actually want to see. But that is not all. What SysKit enables you is to drill down into each separate user session simply by selecting the user and clicking drill down by user. So as you can see, now I'm switched to the session log report in the detailed reports group, and I can see the exact time when the user Thomas started certain session, ended it, on which computer did it happen, and what was the state of that session. Now, as we can see here, Thomas was partly active, partly disconnected, partly idle. And if we want to go and check that statuses, we use the report user activity by state. And this report displays overall user activities divided by different states such as active, idle, disconnected. You can, using this report, you can get an overall insight into employee efficiency regarding their work hours and activity. And not just overall, so we're just talking about the Thomas, and we want to know, as we can see here, it says that Thomas was in the course of the last 7 days on system for 46 hours. But this is showing all states. So we go to filter and we filter only the most, I'm sorry. We go and to filter and filter only the Thomas. And we can see that from his 46 hours on system, he was actually active only 4.05%. So to find out more about that, we can go to the next report, and those are most active users by state. Let me just turn on the filter again. And this report shows us the most active users, well, as said, by state. But currently it is set up to show us the user that has the most hour on systems. But that doesn't show us the real thing, because if we go to states and we filter the most idle users, we see that our Thomas is again on the top, and that from his 40 and something hours on system, he was more than half of that in the idle state. If we want to know who is really the most active user, we simply select just the active, select OK, and then we see that actually the most active user on our system was Sylvester Reed. You can, on this report, you can also drill down by user, and you can use filters to get better results. All of this is great and useful, but it gets even better. SysKit enables you to calculate payrolls using the resource cost overview, and first you need to define the hourly wages for your users, and we're going to do that just now. First we're going to do it for Sylvester. As you can see in this dialog, you can see more information about users, but now we are interested in hourly wage. We're going to put $20. Okay. And we're going to do the same for the Thomas. And now we see the actual wage that Thomas and Sylvester earned in the last 7 days. You can also use this report to create monthly billing or just daily billing reports. And we can perhaps just go and look who earned the most, who was the most active and therefore deserved the biggest payroll in the current month. And we could see it would be the third person around, Martin Radley, for who we didn't right now set the payment, but you understand the point of this report. And this report calculates only the hours that employee was active and sets the payment according to that. So idle sessions are not accounted to that. Now we're going to briefly talk about the IP addresses and clients. And under the network traffic reports, we can find the report IP addresses and clients. And it enables us to pinpoint IP addresses and client names for all users connecting remotely from any location. It can be home, it can be school, it can be some other location. So if we look at the next important report, it is the concurrent usage reports, and it shows us the maximum and average number of remote sessions that are happening at the same time. Now this have one really good use case, and it can tell you how much Citrix licenses you actually need for your environment. Now this 7 days is definitely not big data rich, but if we go and look this month, we can see that in entire month the maximum was 6 simultaneous sessions. But just to be sure, you can go and check the previous month and see that the maximum was 4 sessions, and even 2 months before we see that always the maximum is at 6 sessions. So therefore you can conclude that you don't need more than 6 licenses. Going further, we are going to touch on security performance and security and optimization. So the color depth use report. This is the report that shows you whether your users are using perhaps 32-bit color depth, or is it even lower. Now, to explain why is this important, in old environments such as Windows Server 2008, or even going farther back, or even during long-distance internet connections, high color depth settings affect session performance. So using this report, you can pinpoint the clients that might need to use the lower color depth setting. Now this is definitely not The best example, since we are all working locally and have the 32-bit depth. But let's say that the tables are turned and we have 18 users with 8-bit color depth and one user using 32-bit, and if there will be someone experiencing the problem, you can simply pinpoint that it would be that one and probably because of the color depth. The same thing can be said about the screen resolutions report, since higher screen resolutions also affect session performance, especially over the long distances. Now, in our environment, we mostly have normal resolutions, but let's say if there is someone having a problem and you go check out and see that he is connecting to his remote host using the 4K resolution, you can pretty much say that that could be the cause of his performance problem. Now, the client versions report is a good report for enforcing some security measures or at least checking it, since older client versions often have security flaws, and we all know that. And system administrators needs to be aware of what system flaw, of who could cause some kind of security flaw. Let's take Windows clients, for example, and let's choose a bit filter. So in this environment, we mostly have modern and new Windows clients. But let's say that in this group fits in someone who connects using the Windows Vista, and Vista potentially has security flaws since it is quite old version of Windows, and then you know that you should really keep an eye on that one. So we went through the user reports, but what about the applications our remote users are running on your servers? Now, that information is hiding in the application reports under the, well, it's easiest to find it in the application usage history. Now, here we see it's plenty of data because filter is very broad. But we can go and select a single user, and let's say okay, so we can see for the user Davina that in the month before this one there wasn't any activity. She's probably new. So, and in this month we can see that she ran plenty of different applications, and for each of that applications we can see when she was connected, in what status was the application, what was she when the application was using. But let's say we want to know even more. So we're interested only in, let's say, Microsoft Word applications. So with some thorough filtering, we get results that the Davina used Microsoft Word throughout the January 18th, and she used it. And we can see when she was active and when she was idle during the use of the Word. And now for the end, we need to go to the performance report, since there is also a question of system resources. Having lots of remote users will definitely put a strain on your system performance. So what we need to do is go to the to the performance reports, and then under user performance. Now this is very narrow filter, so we don't get much data, but let's say we put on back all the applications. So you can see that Davina was using about 8 applications here, and you can track their performance values of all the processes applications that was ran by her, since she is in the filter. and we can see the average strain on your performance and average usage of your resources. Maybe we could show someone who has a better picture, and that could be. Okay, and now we can see for each of the performance counters, you can select simply, I don't know, the application. So Sylvester was using SysKit, and for each of the counters, you can see the graphs here, and you can simply get more detailed and dig deeper when a certain spike in certain value happened. Now, what else can you see? We can go to the real-time performance, but that counts only if the user is currently online and in session. And here we can see that Sylvester is currently using 4 processes. We can see how much of the resources are those processes consuming. And if you notice that some of these processes is hogging too much of your resources, you can simply right-click and end the process of the certain process that is making you problems. Okay, now this is the end of this short demo. Let me just transfer back to the okay, this was the demo on user activities with SysKit. If you would like to arrange a one-on-one demo with some of our product team, feel free to contact our sales at sales@accelratio.net. It is now time for the Q&A session. We're going to read and answer a couple of interesting questions from the audience. Just to remind you, all the questions not answered publicly will be answered in our webinar summary. Can we start with the questions, Frane?
Yeah, sure. Let's start. Okay, so I will just read some of the questions that I think those are interesting, and like Silvio mentioned, any of the questions that we might not answer, we'll try to get in touch with you. And please, if there is anything else that you can think about, just feel free to contact us directly and somebody will get in touch with you. Okay, so Jan is asking, where is the software installed? What database is required? So basically you have 2 options. You can install the software. So let's say for larger environments, we recommend a dedicated server. So let's say 30 or more servers, something like that. We recommend to have a dedicated virtual server with at least 2 or 4 virtual CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. For the evaluation, you can use embedded database that comes with the software, but if you decide to move forward with the software, we recommend using a SQL server. Size of the SQL server really depends on the number of servers that you want to monitor. The more servers you have, you will just need to have more RAM, because basically we designed the application with offloading in mind. So everything that we are processing, so all the data, all the users, all the applications, everything is processed on the SysKit server and offloaded to it. Okay, so Chris is asking, how do we capture data from the remote servers? Like I said, we do not, the application is installed on a dedicated server, then we connect to the domain controller and we load the list of servers from the domain controller. You just pick servers what you want to monitor, and then basically we are using WMI and terminal services or RDP or ICA API to capture data from the remote servers. So basically nothing gets installed on the remote servers. You can use it for mission critical servers, and I know this is really cool feature because a lot of our customers told us that actually this is something they need because sometimes they need to do to monitor something on the remote servers, but they are not, for whatever policy they have in the organization, they are not allowed to install third-party software on the production servers. Okay, so David is asking what about the GPU performance? So basically everything, so like Silvio mentioned, you have inside the application a list of performance counters from the server. So if you have a server GPU card that can be shared across the users, and that, for example, NVIDIA cards have a API for this performance counters, and if those performance counters are in the Windows server, you can load data from those performance counters as well. So you can see what is this, the usage of the GPU, what is how the cores are spread, what is the number of users consuming the resources on the GPU and stuff like that. Let's move forward. So what permissions are required on the remote servers from Radek? As we do not install any kind of a software on the third-party on the remote server, we need to have local administrator permissions on the remote server, because basically only local administrator is able to extract all this data, and the local administrator is able to access all the users that are logged on to the remote servers. In some particular situations where you want to extract only, for example, the user activities, who logs on where and for how much, you need to have at least remote desktop users security group. But if you want to extract performance and all this fancy stuff, you need to have a local administrator on all the remote servers, and that's about it. Let's move on. What is defined by active and what is defined by idle, from Martin? So this is really simple. This is something that RDP protocol or ICA is reporting back. So you are active if you are actually in the session, and if you are doing something on the keyboard, if you are generating keystrokes and something like that, or you have a mouse movement, so something is happening in the session. If your session is idle, so that means nothing is doing, nobody is doing nothing in the session, then basically that is an idle state. Probably you know that on the RDP or ICA, after there is 1 minute of inactivity, the protocol will mark you as idle. But in the SysKit you have a special setting where you can tell the software, okay, report users as idle after 5 minutes, not 1. Okay, so Elvira is asking, can it handle multiple domains? So this is something that we built in one of the latest versions of the software. I believe this was announced in September last year. So basically we have now multi-domain support. So if you have multiple untrusted domains, you can enter a user inside the application, and then if you when the software is accessing the servers in different domains, it will impersonate that user that you used in the SysKit. Okay, so Silvio, I believe let me just have this one extra. So Luis is asking, can you schedule reports to the email? Yes. So basically you can schedule all the reports that Silvio talked about to be delivered to the email, even to the file share somewhere on your network, or maybe to the SharePoint. Okay, Silvio, so I guess I covered most of the interesting stuff. if something else comes, we'll just try to contact you directly. Silvio?
Oh, okay, I hear you. This brings us to the end of the Q&A session and with it to the end of our webinar. Thank you all for joining us today, and if you have any questions, please contact us at support@acceleratio.net. Have a very good day, and I'll see you all soon in another one of our webinars. Thanks again, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys. Take care. Bye.